Hello there. My name is Professor Samuel. I would like to welcome you to our Level 7 Diploma in Strategic Management and Leadership. This is going to be a very interesting course where you're going to learn about the principles of leadership and management at master's level. And it's very useful. And this Level 7 Diploma is approved and accredited by OTHM, which is a branch of the Ofqual legal arm of the British government for education and examination. This diploma has 6 modules, and there's approximately 2 to 3 lectures in each module. Now, after each module is done, and if you have seen it and went through the lectures, then there's a multiple choice question at the end of it, which you must pass to successfully get credit for that module. At the end of all the 6 modules, there's a paper which you have to write to get the diploma. Now, in addition to that paper, if it has approximately 10,000 words, we could use it could be defended successfully to go on to obtain your either master's, or if it's a level 6, you'll go get your bachelor's degree. So thank you. So let's talk about strategy. To talk about strategy, first you got to understand what is strategy. Strategy relates to the decisions that are made by senior leaders or middle leaders regarding the future direction and scope of the business. When you talk about strategy, you're looking long term. You're looking somewhere between 3 to 5 years, okay? Now, on the other hand, if you're talking about operational, and the word operational means 1 year, so it's not 5 years, it's usually within 1 year. So it's decisions that are made by senior leaders. What does it cover? What does it entail? It covers action plans that are committed to specific product or services, depending on what industry or nature of industry you are in. It pertains to an action plan, which means what are you going to do to either achieve a certain progress, a plan, a goal, an objective, and commitment to certain products and certain lines in certain markets. Now, there could be 2 types of strategy. One is the master strategy, or could be the program strategy. Example is you're in a hospital and you could be in a stroke program. The hospital strategy, the master strategy, could be quite different from what the program strategy is in that hospital. There could be 2 different things. It covers an action plan, commitment to specific products and services in the market. It also specifies competitive moves and business approaches that need to be taken to achieve the objectives in the organization. Its main purpose, a strategic plan or decision, objective is to create a competitive advantage for itself in the marketplace. In other words, in simple language, a strategy is the means to achieve the objectives of an organization. Now, it could be of an organization or a program in an organization. Now, let's talk about strategy in the 2 classifications: master strategy and program strategy. Master strategy is determining the missions and long-term objectives, and it also entails creating the policies that are needed to achieve the missions and objectives. Now, what is program strategy, right? It's a specific action plan that is specific to the particular program, and it has a timeline, to a specified time frame. Now, in master strategy, you have long-term, 5-year plan. In program strategy, you do have a timeline. It's very specific. Now let's talk about first things, which is the vision. So let's talk about vision, right? As part of strategic planning, vision is something what the organization hopes to achieve in the future. There are a few characteristics of vision. In order to describe the characteristics, what are the desires of the organizational members? It should set a direction, should inspire members, relate to long-term objectives, and continuously re-evaluated and updated because the vision of an organization can change. Um, as part of the strategic planning, an organization should look forward to its future as an organization and asks itself a question: what kind of organization do we want to become? The question is aimed at direction setting, underlying the concepts of strategic vision for the organization. The question, what your vision is an attempt to evolve a roadmap to the organization's future. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where does this organization envision itself in a few years? Let's talk about the mission. The mission is actually derived from the vision. It provides a purpose for the organization. It's described in terms of product, services, markets, and clients. You can address any one of those above. Mission characteristics, it's defined from the outside. What do customers think about our business? Perspective. It's stated in abstract terms and provides direction. It provides direction to all employees and managers of the firm. It's concerned with the future and remains valid for a few years till it's updated. The concept of mission is always dynamic and not static. The mission should cover the total scope of the business of the firm. The mission of an organization not only provides its purpose for the organization, but it's also defined in terms of the benefits of the organization. Uh, in other words, the benefits, it's defined in terms of benefits the organization provides to its customers. Therefore, the starting point for defining the mission of any business is its customers. So that's very important take-home point. Now, its customers can be a society, it can be a community, um, and the external environment dictates what kind of mission. The clients in your external environment or the group of population in your external environment determines what your mission is going to be. Now let's talk about objectives. They are derived from the mission. They can be defined for the organization as a whole or as different sectors of the organization. It could be different programs within the organization. It serves as a guiding framework for business activities. The characteristics of objectives, its long-term direction for business activities described in specific terms, describes how the organization will fulfill its mission, and it reflects an action. Strategy. Strategy um, is important. We mentioned what a strategy is, what an organization has to do, or actions an organization has to take to achieve its objectives. The components of a business strategy are specific products and markets, changes planned in the product market scope, competitive advantage, and business strength. The strategy seeks to achieve the firm's objectives in the context of a specific product market scope with future orientation based on its internal strength and its unique market position. So let's now talk about policies. What are policies? Policies are a set of standards, right? The set of standard course of actions and guidelines, and is used as a groundwork or a basis for decision making. It helps streamline decision-making process without having to involve senior leaders at every turn. It is also important because it ensures consistency, proper delegation, and avoid arbitrary decisions. Hello there, welcome back. Now let's talk about what are some of the tools that we have to use in strategic planning. Some of the tools that we have, the first one we're going to talk about is a rational planning model, and that is based on two things. One is based on resources, and second, it's based on market-based view. So let me put it in other words. One is based on input, and the other is based on output. So that's what it relates to. The concept of viewing the company as a collection of capabilities. So it focuses. This is resource-based view. The concept is basically of viewing the company as a collection of capabilities, focuses on a mix of external market environment and internal capabilities. It suggests also that a company's unique resource and capability should provide for the basis and strategy. The business strategy should also allow the company to best exploit its core competencies, having relative to the opportunities in the external environment. The research-based theory or research-based view is based on the concept of viewing the company as a collection of capabilities. The traditional strategy models, such as the Porter's model on the company's external competitive environment, most of them do not attempt to look inside the company. In contrast, the resource-based perspective highlights its need for a fit between the external market or the output to the internal capabilities, which is the input. The resource-based view suggests that the company's unique resources and capabilities provide the basis for a strategy. The business strategy chosen should allow the company to best exploit the core competencies. Okay, core competencies in relation to both the input, the resources, and the opportunities in the external environment. Now let's talk about the resource-based views. Uh, Inputs into a company's production, capital, equipment, skills of individual employees, patients, patents, and finance. And not the least is the talented managers. They are very important resources. Now, what is the capabilities? Uh, Capabilities is the expression or the articulation of capacity, materials, and expertise an organization needs in order to perform its functions, core functions. Resource and capabilities. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Each organization is a collection of unique resources and capabilities that provides differences in a company's performance across time. Organizations drive primarily by the unique resources and capabilities rather than by industrial structure or characteristics. So this is the driving basis of an organization: unique resources and capabilities. Resources are inputs into a firm's production process, such as capital, equipment, the skill of an individual employees, patents, finance, and talented managers. A capability is the expression or articulation of the capacity and materials and expertise an organization needs in order to perform the core functions. So you have internal, resources or inputs, and then you have capability, and then you have the outputs, okay, which is, so there's three parts to it. Now let's talk about the market-based theory. Market-based theory could be further divided into four subsections. One is the Porter's five forces model. Next is a logical incrementalism. And then the next third is the Mintzberg emergent strategy model. And the fourth is the bounded rationality model. Let's go into each one of these to better understand. Let's talk about the Porter's 5 forces model. It's an analytical tool that is used for examining the competitive environment. There are 5 components of the competitive forces. They are threats of new entrants into the market, bargaining powers of buyers, the bargaining powers of the suppliers in the market, then the threat of substitute products and services available in the market that might come into competition or might displace your product, the intensity of the rivalry among the competitors in the industry. Now, each of these forces affect the ability of a firm to compete in a given market. With these forces operate together, they determine the profit potential for a particular industry. It helps a firm to assess its future position in the industry and provides the rationality or rationale for increasing or decreasing the resource commitment in future time. For industry analysis to be valuable, a firm should collect and evaluate a wide variety of information collected from many sources. The method of analysis assumes a zero-sum game, determining how a firm can enhance its position relative to the forces. Such an approach can be short-sighted in a sense that it can overlook the many potential benefits of a developing constructive win-win relationship with suppliers and customers. Um, Further, by working together as partners, suppliers and manufacturers can provide the greatest value to the customer at the lowest cost. Let's talk about logical incrementalism. Logical incrementalism is a management philosophy of making smaller steps and smaller decisions to reach the organizational goal and to be adaptive to change. The small steps attempt to resolve conflicting views um, of participants and reduce risk by capitalizing on knowledge that is gained during the process. Logical incrementalism benefits from flexibility but is likely to be time consuming an inefficient process or a tool, but it is a safe tool. Incrementalism is a method of working by adding to a project using many small, often unplanned incremental changes instead of a few extensive planned larger jumps. It benefits are flexibility. Likely, the cons are time consuming and could be inefficient. And the philosophy is small steps and small decisions to reach the bigger organizational goal and to be adaptive. Advantages of a logical incrementation is less risk involved. It's very easy to implement small steps rather than going for large steps. It involves very high focus. Relative less investment is required, and planning wouldn't be a huge issue. What are the disadvantages, right? It cannot initiate a drastic change to the organization. It takes time. Lack of integration. It cannot really fit into the overall strategy of the organization. It's not suitable for a dynamic business environment because the changes made are too small to adapt to the changes in the dynamic environment. Now, let's talk about the Mintzberg emergence strategy. I'll divide it into 4 aspects. According to Mintzberg's theory, not all strategies are realized in the end. That means not all the intended strategies work to achieve the preset objectives. Managers will have to constantly think of new strategies while the main operation is going on. These new um, strategies are called as emergent strategies by Mintzberg. But as you know, my doctorate was in situational leadership, and I would like to call this the model as rather as a situational strategic model, where subsequent decisions are made based on the current situation you're facing. But Mintzberg's emergent strategy is basically the same thing. It's a situational strategy decision process. Um, it leads to revisions in the strategic plan, and that's called as emergent strategy. So if you were to be asked what's Mintzberg emergent strategy, it's revisions to the initial original strategic plan according to the current situations that you're facing is emergent strategy. Ultimately, what gets implemented is the revised strategy, which is actually the realized strategy. Last one is bounded rationality, right? It's a concept based on the fact that rationality of individuals is limited by the information that they have and cognitive limitations and the amount of time it takes to make decisions. The decision maker is a satisfier, one seeking a satisfactory solution rather than an optimal one. Bounded rationality is another way to look at a bounded rationality is that because decision makers lack the ability and resources to arrive at the optimal solution, they instead apply the rationality only after having greatly simplified the choices available. Thus, the decision maker is basically satisfying the current situation rather than seeking the optimal one. Some models of human behavior in the social science assume that humans can be reasonably approximated or described as rational entities. Many economic models assume that the people are on average rational and can enlarge can in large enough quantities be approximated to act according to the preferences. Advantage of the rational planning model: it provides clear basis for decision making. It's a top-down approach. It evaluates or takes into consideration the internal capabilities and resources. It critically evaluates external environment opportunities and threats. It ensures high degree of responsibility based on management decisions. Integrates all aspects of the organization. Next, we'll talk about the disadvantages of the rational planning model. Disadvantages are there's no clear objectives, right? It's developed based on your rationale, which could be your bias or experience from the past, and that's very rigid. And sometimes you ignore low-level participation and low-level team players, and it also ignores customers' preference. So it's not the greatest. It's not the greatest tool when it comes to as a tool to make strategic decisions and management. Next topic is stakeholder analysis. Who is a stakeholder? Any individual or person or group with interest in a corporation. Now, what are the examples, right? It could be investors, it could be employees, it could be customers, it could be suppliers. Internal stakeholders could be employees, managers, directors, and members of the organization. And then there's the connected stakeholders. Those are stakeholders who have an economic or contractual relationship with the organization. Last is the external stakeholders. These stakeholders are not directly connected to the organization, but they have an interest in its activities and or impacted by them in some way, shape, or form. Example of this would be a restaurant owner near a hospital, where if you have a lot of patients, you got clients, but if you don't have patients in the hospital, you don't have clients in the restaurant. So it's indirectly affected. Employees are interested in the success of the company, as the expenses, the utilities, the mortgage, all of it depends on it. They're able to pay the bills because they are getting paid, and they're getting paid because the organization is successful. Shareholders who are investors, right? They want a return on their investment. plus continuously increasing in value with time. Suppliers depend, the success of the company depends as the own business success is interlinked. Now, last is the customers. They require value for the money, so they want consistent service and dependability. Stakeholder analysis process is useful to categorize various stakeholders which interests they represent, the amount of power they possess, whether they represent inhibiting or supporting factors for the organization to realize its objective, and methods in which they should be dealt with. So as I mentioned here, you should pay attention to the positive, not positive, inhibiting or supporting, which I would call it as negative or positive for factors, factors that they or the power they possess that can affect the organization in a positive way to achieve its goals, or they can be in a negative way or inhibit them from achieving its goals. One of the important things you can do is you can draw a power grid. So a power or interest grid for stakeholder prioritization. Now you can divide that into 4 sections, right? You have high power and high interest, low power and low interest. The left lower box, which is the monitor minimum effort, low power, less interested people, you just monitor. Monitor these people that bore them, but don't bore them with excessive communication. Next, you have the low power but high interest. You keep them informed and keep them in the loop. People in this category can be very helpful with the details of your project. Next, you have high power but low interest. These people put enough work in these people to keep them satisfied, but not enough to bore them with your messages. Now, there are people that are high power and highly interested. Now, you manage these people very closely. You must fully engage these people and make the greatest effort to satisfy them and keep them informed, involved, and engaged in the projects, the strategy goals, objectives of your organization.